Hi, everybody. Hope you had a good week. If not, that's okay too. I'm just glad that you're tuning in. Last week we talked about what it means to be a part of God's story, to participate in what God's doing in this world. That He has each of us is created uniquely and wonderfully to just be able to do something that nobody else can do. And so we're going to continue in that theme a little bit, and we're going to dive into just what God has done in and through Christ. That we want to understand the big story of the Scripture, and there's a tool by James Strong that hopefully will help you locate yourself in the story. And I hope it helps you and blesses you personally, but also it's a tool that maybe you can employ yourself to help maybe your friends understand what the Bible is all about. And so, yeah, so let's dive into just his tool and let's see what we can learn from it. Okay. When you think about the world, what do you make of it? What do you think? When you watch the news, how do you process things? When we look at our world today, it's hard not to be discouraged, right? Because when we see the world, we see all this infighting, division, racism, sexism, every single ism out there. We see the planet seemingly self-destructing. We see COVID-19 wreaking havoc. It's like this nightmare that just never ends, right? And so I think it's not too hard to convince all of you and your friends that our world is kind of a dark and broken place, and that we're aching for something more. We're aching for the world to be a better place. We just have this innate sense that this is not right. This is not how the world should be. Now, I think it's interesting because I think that's really a hint that maybe there was a world maybe there is a world that we're created for. Maybe this world did one at one time exist, and in the Bible it actually does say that we were created for this kind of world. That God created us in His image, that we were meant to live. He created this beautiful world that we lived in, and we were created to live in relationship with Him. And so all these things were meant to be good. That we were designed for good. And we're designed to be in good relationship with each other, with God, and with this planet that we lived in. And that we're supposed to live in communion with one another, and all things were supposed to flourish. Now, what happened? How we get from here to here? Well, humanity at one point in history decided, you know what, God, thank you, but no thank you. We're going to live our lives our own way. Rather than you rule over us, we want to rule over our own lives. We want to determine what is good. We want to determine what is right. And so humanity, in a sense, just rejected God. And so even though we're supposed to live in communion with God and relationships with God, we decided, you know what, we don't want to have anything to do with you. And so our relationship with God has been fractured. And consequently, our relationship with one another has been fractured. And our relationship to the world, to our planet, has also been fractured as well, as we've sought to live lives for ourselves and we've gone inward, where instead of God being the center of everything, we've declared ourselves at the center of everything, and that everything revolves around us. And so, consequently, the world is in chaos because humanity, you and I, as part of humanity, is living for self, is living for our own needs, our own wants. We want to determine what's good, right, and good and perfect. So we're a world that is damaged by evil. Now, I think all of us, if we have an honest moment, have been affected in some way, whether it be something the poor choices that we make in our own life, whether it be things that happen to us that we never asked for. Evil is not just out there, evil is also in our hearts if we're honest with ourselves. Now, what does God do about it? Thankfully, God does not just leave us idly by. God is not indifferent. God is not powerless. He's not just kind of put up his hands in the sky and surrender, saying, I don't know what to do. Rather, God does something about it. God does something that we can't do for ourselves. In fact, God writes himself into our story, and he's creating a resistance movement against the fall. And what's interesting is that Jesus enters into this world. He doesn't coerce or force this at all. Yes, Jesus is creating a resistance movement, but it's not a violent one. It's not one that he does by force, nor is it a movement where he's trying to get people to escape from the brokenness of the world. Rather, Jesus himself, when we look at the stories in the Gospels, he dives into the mess. He dives into the mess, the brokenness of this world, and he shows us what life looks like when God is at the center of each of our lives. That Jesus, through his life, through his love for neighbor, through his care and ministry of those who are sick, who need healing, Jesus was incredibly compassionate. That Jesus was drawn to the brokenhearted. That Jesus was drawn to the marginalized, healing them holistically, healing their relationships, healing their bodies, in many ways. Helping them see that, reversing really the effects of the fall and what evil brought into this world. And then Jesus took even further, that all the damage that we inflicted upon the world, upon ourselves, upon other people, that Jesus, through his death on a cross, absorbed that damage, that Jesus was willing to subject himself to all that we've done, so that all the junk, all the garbage, all the ugliness died with him on the cross, that all the damage that we did died with him on the cross. And then 3 days later, Jesus rose again, that he rose from the grave, that he defeated death, that he's making all things new, that he's overcame evil, that evil is not going to have this last word. And so through Jesus, through what he did, humanity has the opportunity and invitation for our relationships with God to be right again, through what Christ has done. So that when we submit to Jesus at the cross, our relationships can be restored, and that it can be repaired, and that forgiveness can be received and given, that we can live in right relationship with one another. So we're restored for the better. It's an amazing thing to think that Jesus would go to these lengths to bring restoration to a world that's so deeply damaged by evil. But this is what Jesus does, that God loves us, loves this world so much that he's willing to put his life on the line and write himself into the story, so that we may know who God is, so that we may be in right relationship with him again. Now, the story doesn't end here. It's already a great story as is. To have our relationships be healed with God, with one another, that we can be with God forever again. That oftentimes in certain Christian circles we stop there, but Jesus has more in mind. In fact, Jesus wants us to be a part of what he's doing in this world, and this is kind of comes back to where are we in this story, because Jesus calls upon us to be on mission with him, to be a part of what he's doing, and God is wanting to bring healing not only in our relationships, but healing to this broken world in which we inhabit. And so Jesus calls upon his people, you and me, called the church, to be sent out into the world to heal. Okay, so we're sent together to heal. This is the mission, the purpose that each of us have. If you're a follower of Jesus today, that we're sent together on a mission to heal this broken world. Jesus doesn't. The world isn't just free from sin all at once. Rather, we get to be a part of what he's doing. So through our lives, through our witness, through what we do, we get to display Jesus. That we hopefully, in coming to know Jesus, we're wanting to become more and more like him. As we become more and more like him, that more and more people get to see what God is like through how we love other people, how we care, how we sacrifice, how we give of ourselves, how we forgive, how we speak out truth when truth needs to be spoken, when there is injustice, that we would be able to stand for the vulnerable, to stand for those who are hurting. These are all the things that Jesus calls upon us to do. We're sent together to heal. So this is the big story of the Bible. We are invited into this story, and maybe for you it means that you come to grips with the fact that we're damaged by evil, and maybe you are not sure how God fits into the picture, and perhaps here it's maybe through this diagram made a little more clear in terms of what Jesus did for you. and maybe you haven't taken the step to give your life to Christ and for your relationship with God to be healed, because that's the starting point for us to be healed ourselves, and for us to be a part of what God is doing in this world. That we're in many ways agents of healing to a world that is so devoid of love and hope. And so, but maybe you're kind of in this place of, I think I know what it means to know God and be in relationship with Him, but you're kind of not really sure about what your life is supposed to be about. Well, I hope this circle gives you kind of an idea of what your purpose is. That in the end, we're sent together as a community through the power of the Spirit to bring healing in all different sectors of life. It's not just when we go on mission trips, or it's not just an evangelistic meeting. It's at school, or in your neighborhood, or if you're part of a sports club, or if you're a part of a orchestra, or you're part of some kind of group that you're a part of, that in those domains, in those parts where God has you, that you have an opportunity to be a living witness to who God is in your life. It's not that we're perfect by any stretch of the imagination. We're still in the process of being healed and becoming more and more like Jesus. We have a lot of rough edges for sure, but it gives us opportunity to admit when we're wrong, and or to ask forgiveness when we need for when we wrong somebody. So these are all the things that we can do to show that Jesus is alive, that we're works in progress. We don't have it all figured out, but we're in this journey with Jesus to hopefully bring more and more hope in a world that's so in need of hope. So I hope these these circles were helpful, and so yeah, let's live into God's story. Well, I hope that tool was helpful for you to kind of figure out where you are in the story, and that you would just really be intentional in the coming days about how we can, just make a difference in each of the areas in which each domain in which you're maybe part of, whether it be at school, maybe you're a part of a certain club, or a part of just these different things. That in those domains, can you imagine yourself perhaps making a difference for Jesus? That through the power of the Spirit, through what God's working in you, can you perhaps share a little bit about what God is doing in your life, whether it be verbally, whether it be through your actions, whether it be through your prayers, that you'd be able to make a difference, to be able to see the ways that God might be working in those domains. So, what did you think about that? And I'd love to hear any stories that you might have about how God showed up and God maybe used you in a powerful way. So, hope you have a great week, and just love to connect with you again. So take care. Bye.